You've been told to drill more holes, to keep moving, that the run-and-gun tactic is the key to finding those big winter crappie. Well, I'm here to tell you that in midwinter, that is probably the worst advice you could possibly follow. Today, we're going to dismantle why this aggressive popular tactic is a complete lie when it comes to catching lethargic, suspended crappie. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will understand the real reason you're going home empty-handed. And it has nothing to do with your lure or your bait, it's your entire strategy. So let me know in the comments right now, are you a run-and-gun angler or a sit-and-wait fisherman? Let's see who's on what side before we even get started. First, let's be fair. The run-and-gun strategy didn't come from nowhere. It's a fantastic tactic for early ice and late ice, you know, when the fish are still aggressive, scattered, and actively feeding in shallower water. The whole idea is to cover as much water as possible to find that one pod of active fish. We've all seen it. The guy with the high-speed auger drilling a grid of 50 holes, dropping his transducer in for 10 seconds, and then moving on. It looks efficient. It feels productive. It's what you often see the pros do on television. And because of that, it has become the accepted gospel of modern ice fishing. But here's the problem. Fish behavior changes drastically in the dead of winter, and the tactic that was so effective in December becomes your worst enemy in January and February. Let's start with the mid-winter mindset of a crappie. The water is at its coldest. The fish's metabolism has slowed to a crawl. They are not in a chasing mood. They are in an energy conservation mode. Every little bit of movement they make is calculated. They aren't going to dart 10 feet to smash your bait like they would in the fall. They are lethargic, suspended, and, most importantly, very, very spooky. This isn't the same fish you were catching a month ago. Because their metabolism is so low, energy conservation is everything. Think about it from the fish's perspective. Does it make sense to burn 10 calories to chase a meal that only provides 5 calories of energy? Absolutely not. A midwinter crappie will not move far for its food. It wants a meal that requires almost zero effort to eat. It wants something that drifts right into its face. When you are running and gunning, you are looking for an aggressive fish, but those fish barely exist right now. Now let's talk about the biggest problem, the noise. Your auger is loud, very loud. Under the ice, that sound travels a long way. It's not just a dull roar, it's a high-frequency, water-displacing vibration. To a school of already on-edge crappie, that sound is a threat. It's like setting off a car alarm in a quiet library. It doesn't attract them, it puts them on high alert and can completely shut down a potential bite before you even get a line in the water. Here is a real-life example I see all the time. An angler arrives at a quiet, deep basin known to hold crappie. He fires up the auger and drills 20 holes in a big circle. He's thinking he's covering the area, but what he's actually done is create a 20-point circle of fear. The fish in that basin don't get curious. They either slowly sink to the bottom and become completely inactive, or they drift out of the area altogether. He effectively poisoned his own spot with noise. Some anglers have this idea of a spook zone. They think the fish right under the hole might get scared, but the ones 30 feet away are fine. In midwinter, the whole basin is the spook zone. These lethargic crappie are extremely sensitive to pressure changes and vibration. When you drill that hole, you are sending a shockwave through their living room. They don't get used to it after the 10th hole. They just get more and more defensive and less likely to bite. So if they're not actively feeding, what are these crappie doing? They are typically suspended over deep water. They're relating to the basin, the deepest part of the lake. They might be holding near some subtle piece of underwater structure, like an old creek channel or a small hump, but often they are just hanging motionless in the void. They are waiting for the light to change, the barometric pressure to shift, or for an easy meal to drift by. Their schooling behavior changes dramatically too. In early winter, a school of Crappie is a competitive feeding machine. When one eats, they all want to eat. But a midwinter school is a defensive unit. They bunch up tightly for safety and energy conservation. If one fish gets spooked by your auger or your aggressive jigging, it can send a signal to the entire school. Suddenly the whole group gets lockjaw. You have to approach them like a single, wary organism. This is why your flasher often seems to lie to you. You drill a hole, drop your transducer, and see a screen full of red marks suspended 15 feet down. You get excited, drop your lure, and they all vanish. You think, darn, they moved. No, they didn't move. You scared them. The pressure of your heavy lure dropping in, or the unnatural jigging motion was enough to make them fade away. They are likely still nearby, but they are no longer interested in you. This brings us to the biggest fallacy of the run-and-gun method, the 5-minute rule. The common wisdom is, if you don't get a bite or see a fish in 5 minutes, it's time to move to the next hole. In midwinter, this rule is a recipe for failure. You are leaving the party right before it even starts. You're not giving the fish or the spot enough time to recover from your noisy arrival. Consider the time it takes for fish to settle down. After you drill a hole and make all that commotion, the immediate area needs time to return to normal. This can take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes even longer. The Crappie that was spooked need to feel safe again. They might slowly drift back into position. By leaving after just 5 minutes, you are consistently fishing the most unproductive window of time at every single hole you drill. Let's also talk about your presentation. The run-and-gun approach often involves aggressive jigging, big rips and fast snaps designed to call fish in from a distance and trigger a reaction strike. This works great for active fish, but for a neutral, lethargic midwinter Crappie, it's terrifying. Imagine you're trying to take a nap, and someone starts frantically waving a piece of metal in your face. You wouldn't be tempted, you'd be scared. It looks completely unnatural and threatening. The power of subtlety is what you need to embrace. The midwinter Crappie often respond to the smallest, most minute movements. We're talking tiny twitches of the rod tip, or just the gentle sway of your bait in the current. Sometimes the best approach is no movement at all. This is why the dead stick method, where you let a live minnow sit perfectly still under a bobber, is so incredibly effective during this time of year. It's a natural, non-threatening meal. The true alternative to run and gun is what I call the sit and soak strategy. It is the polar opposite. The goal is not to cover as much water as possible, but to fish one high percentage area as effectively as possible. You find a promising spot, drill only 2 or 3 holes, and then you commit to being patient. You sit, you wait, and you let the fish come to you and get comfortable with your presence. So, how do you pick a spot for a sit and soak? You have to do your homework before you even hit the ice. Use your lake maps. Look for the deepest basins on the lake. Find any subtle inside turns, underwater points, or depressions within those basins. These are the places where baitfish will gather and where Crappie will suspend. You are not looking for a spot, you are looking for a zone, a general area where these fish will spend their winter. I'll share a quick story from the ice that proves this point. I was on a well-known community spot. Guys were running around, drilling everywhere, and catching nothing. I picked one spot on an inside turn, drilled 2 holes, and sat. For 2 hours, I saw absolutely nothing on my vexillar. I was tempted to move, then a tiny, faint flicker appeared near the bottom. I just held my tungsten jig dead still, and slowly that mark rose up and inhaled it. It was a giant 14-inch crappie. They had been there, inactive, the whole time. This strategy also requires you to downsize everything. This is not the time for heavy spoons or rattling lures. We are talking about tiny tungsten jigs the size of a pinhead. Your line should be ultra-thin, like 2 or 3 pound test fluorocarbon, which is nearly invisible underwater. Your whole setup needs to be about finesse and stealth. You are not trying to force a bite. You are trying to persuade a very skeptical fish that your tiny offering is a safe and easy meal. You also need to change how you use your electronics. In a run-and-gun scenario, your flasher is a hunting tool to find fish. In a sit-and-soak strategy, it becomes an observation tool. You use it to see how the fish react not just to your lure, but to your presence. When a mark appears, don't immediately start jigging aggressively. Watch it. Does it move closer when you hold still? Does it fade away when you twitch the bait? Let the fish tell you what it wants. So, does this mean run and gun is always bad? Absolutely not. It is a critical tool in an ice angler's toolbox. It's just the wrong tool for this specific job. Save the run and gun for early ice when the weeds are still green and the crappie are aggressively feeding in 10 feet of water. Use it during late ice when meltwater is bringing new oxygen into the lake and the fish are moving up to pre-spawn locations. But in the dead of winter, put that tool away. We need to reframe our goal for a midwinter trip. Your goal is not to run around and find the 1% of fish that are actively feeding. Your goal is to locate a large school of neutral or even negative fish and, through patience and subtlety, convince a few of them to eat. It's a completely different mindset. You are no longer a hunter chasing your prey. You are an ambush predator, waiting for the perfect moment. Here is the final nail in the coffin for the run and gun midwinter lie. The tactic is designed for covering water to find fish that are spread out. But midwinter crappie are the opposite of spread out. They are tightly concentrated in very specific, predictable locations, those deep basins. They aren't roaming the lake, they are holding in their winter sanctuary. Your job isn't to run all over the house to find them, it's to quietly sneak into the one room they are in and wait. So let's put it all together. The aggressive, noisy, and impatient run and gun tactic is a lie for midwinter crappie because it actively works against you. It spooks the lethargic fish with noise. You leave each hole long before the fish have had a chance to calm down, and your presentation is often too aggressive for their neutral mood. The biggest aha moment for me was realizing this. Being busy on the ice does not equal being productive. In fact, in the dead of winter, stillness and patience are your most powerful weapons. The real experts aren't the guys drilling 100 holes. They're the ones sitting quietly over 2 or 3, analyzing their electronics and waiting for that subtle bite window to open. I challenge you on your next mid-winter trip, leave the high-speed mindset at the boat launch. Pick one good zone, drill just a few holes, and commit to being patient. It will fundamentally change your success rate. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that breaks down old fishing myths. And for the final question, what is the longest you have ever sat on a single ice hole before finally getting a bite? Drop your stories of patience in the comments below. I can't wait to read them.